Over the course of this 10-week video series, we're going to ask and answer 10 questions. These questions and their answers come from a book by Rebecca McLaughlin called 10 Questions Every Teen Should Ask and Answer About Christianity. We'd encourage you to take a look at this book as it goes a little deeper into each of the questions we'll be posing. We'll look at topics like universalism, diversity, sexuality, the afterlife, and more. Our hope is that as we engage with these topics, we'll all see how faith in Jesus, it's not about blindly accepting religious tradition or dogma. It's about thinking clearly, critically, and rationally about life's biggest questions and coming to the realization that Jesus is in fact the way, the truth, and the life. So let's start with our question for this video. Isn't Christianity against diversity? Diversity is a buzzword in our culture, and it's pretty common for people to make the assumption and the assertion that Christianity, at its core, is against diversity. Now, I think there are three main reasons people assume that. Number one, people think that Christianity is basically a white religion. There are parts of history where white Christians have used and oppressed people of other ethnic and religious groups, and the reality of that history leads many people to assume that Christianity must be against diversity. Reason two, Christians believe that Jesus is the only way to God, and that's not a very popular idea. Most people today think the idea that a Christian could believe that Jesus is the only way to God is disrespectful and unloving. Reason three, people think that Christians are unloving and hateful towards people in the LGBTQ+ community. So when people ask the question, when they make the assumption, isn't Christianity against diversity? They usually mean one of those three things. Isn't Christianity mostly white? Don't Christians believe Jesus is the only way to God? And don't Christians hate people who believe differently than they do about sexuality? We'll explore number two in our next video, and we'll look at the LGBTQ+ conversation in video 7 and 8. But for now, let me answer the question once and for all, isn't Christianity against diversity? No, Jesus commands not just tolerance of those who are different from us, but deep, expensive, unrelenting love. Isn't Christianity against diversity? Absolutely not. Let's dive into why. First, Jesus invented diversity. If what the Bible says is true, then Jesus is the one who created people from Africa, Asia, Europe, the Americas, and India. If what the Bible says is true, then the uniqueness of each individual, the diversity of the human race, is ultimately a byproduct of Jesus's creativity, desire for diversity, and his love. Second, Jesus commanded love across differences. We said a second ago that sometimes people assume that Christianity is basically a white religion. They assume that the Bible was written by white Western men because white Western men have a history of abusing the Bible's authority. But that's not the truth at all. The Bible was written down by brown-skinned Jewish people from the Middle East over the course of hundreds of years. Not only that, but the writings in the Bible teach us to love people who are different from us. Ultimately, Jesus goes as far to command all Christians to go and make disciples of all nations. That means people from every single ethnic group, people from all kinds of backgrounds, people with all kinds of differences and oddities. Christianity isn't against diversity. It teaches love across diversity. Third, the result of Christianity is diversity. Today, Christianity is the most diverse belief system in the world. According to the Pew Research Center, there are roughly the same number of Christians living in Europe as Latin America and Africa, and the church in Asia is growing rapidly despite intense persecution under communist governments. Now, it's indisputable that Christians in the past have abused the authority of the Bible. They've abused their power and influence in an effort to abuse and oppress other people. It's a fact that there were Christians that benefited and propagated things like the slave trade in the United States and abroad. But it's also true that the evil actions of individuals do not represent the actions, beliefs, and teachings of the whole group. I'm not dismissing the horrible things that have happened in Christianity's past, but the reality is, Christianity is not against diversity. Jesus created diversity. He commands us to love across differences, and the spread of Christianity has resulted in and will continue to result in the most ethnically diverse belief system in all of human history.